All right, well, welcome everyone to a database for greener yet efficient materials for multifamily housing. This course is approved for one continuing education unit, GBCI, AIA HSW, Green Certified Professionals under NARI and the Home Builders Association, AIBD, as well as may be applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Today I will be your host and moderator. My name is Brett Little and I'm the Executive Director here at the Green Home Institute. This year we are celebrating our 15th year and we are a nonprofit with a mission to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. Got to thank our massive Platinum Plus sponsor for this year, Andersen Windows for new construction, Renewal by Andersen for existing retrofits, and our minor sponsors this year, Cake Systems. Check out Panasonic for every single one of your ventilation needs, their Whisper Green, humidistats, motion sensors, retrofits, you name it. Certainteed and St. Gobain and their Air Renew product that actually eats formaldehyde out of the air. Check them out. And then we got to say thanks to Black Locust Lumber and Warmboard. Do you support greener homes? Become a member, help keep these sessions free, get discounts on other larger trainings that we're hosting throughout the year, and discounts on your green building certifications and more. All right, so with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers today and get going there. Our first one, Dana Parker, is the National Program Manager for the Clean Energy Manufacturing Center. Dana joined the CEMC team in January of 2012 after spending the previous 3 years working as a state program manager for National Clean Energy Advocates, the Apollo Alliance, and Green Building Alliance in Michigan. Also joining us is Dale Reckman, who is an energy specialist with the Clean Energy Manufacturing Center. In his position, he is responsible for developing the manufacturing capabilities of emerging clean energy supply chain companies through on-site profiles, coaching, and referrals. Also joining us will be Lauren Asplin. She joined the BlueGreen Alliance Foundation in 2013 as the organization's Training Development Director. So with that, I'm going to hand it over first to Dana Parker, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Great, thank you so much, Brett. Just one quick housekeeping note on my end. I must have not updated our bios when I sent them to you, Brett. We're actually now known as the Clean Economy Manufacturing Center, partially because we're starting to look into far more industries just beyond clean energy. So I just wanted to make that note before we move forward. Just to provide folks a little bit of background on the organization, the BlueGreen Alliance was actually started as a project of the United Steelworkers and the Sierra Club several years back, and really that was to look at the intersection of labor and environmental issues and how to solve some of those issues that were coming between those two groups. The Clean Economy Manufacturing Center, which used to be known as the Clean Energy Manufacturing Center, was born basically as a project between BGA and the U.S. Department of Commerce, really looking to educate manufacturers on supply chain issues in clean energy industry. So we really did a lot of work educating folks on the wind and solar supply chain opportunities in those markets. But specifically looking into the project that we are working on now related to multifamily housing and energy efficient and healthier building products, we have our project goals, really are looking to accelerate the energy efficient retrofits of low income residential and multifamily housing. We are part of a network that is nationally funded to work on these issues in a variety of capacities within policy and other arenas. We are specifically looking at products. And the second thing here is to create, economic development, energy savings opportunities, and healthier environments for residents and tenants and workers. Looking to understand and promote the manufacturing opportunities in the energy efficient housing products and supply chains, similar to what we did before within wind and solar, but now looking at the economic opportunities that lie with all in the energy efficient building product sector. I want to understand the dynamics associated with the elimination and substitution of these harmful chemicals and look for alternatives. And then also really trying to work with decision makers within the construction and retrofit process, looking for energy efficient, cost viable product options. And that's what really our tool that we are working on and have built here is for. Specifically, here's some information about our supply chain database. Dale will be getting into more detail with a live demo, but in general, we've done a lot of research on 5 major market sectors: HVAC, appliances, lighting, water, and building shell. Within building shell specifically, we did a lot of work on insulation, but have future plans to be building out into other building shell type categories as well. We have 1,300 companies represented here. They're all searchable by tier. Dale will get a little bit more into that in his descriptions. Market involvement, where they're located, where they're manufacturing, CSI, that's the Construction Specifications Institute information, master number, and more. And actually this database is very expandable and versatile by design. We are looking to grow again and add more categories to this and sort of expand usability of it, so we've designed it specifically to do that. And it is all online and available for people to use for free. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Dale Reckman, who's going to dig in a little deeper and show us how the database actually works in a live demonstration.
Thanks, Dana, and obviously thanks to Brett as well. On behalf of the entire Clean Economy Manufacturing Center, it's always exciting when we get the opportunity to talk about the exciting work that we've been doing regarding the database. So as they've stated, hopefully now everybody is in fact seeing a live version of the database as we're actually pulling from online. The address up at the top for future reference is bgadata.org, so obviously you can go to this at any time you like. So what I want to do is I want to walk through a few key aspects of kind of what's within the database, some of the different pieces of functionality, and then we're going to go back through a couple other colleagues, through Lauren and through Dana again, and they're going to talk about some of the harmful chemicals work that we've done, as well as an additional attribute of the supply chain database being a supply chain map, which is really a pretty exciting thing as well. So as we look here at the database is broken down into 3 primary pieces of information, if you will. It's the database itself, it's a harmful chemicals section, and then it is, as I just mentioned, a supply chain map, which is, again, all interrelated and interconnected with that of the actual company database information that we have stored within here as well. So as we look across the top, your top row descriptions, we obviously have a home button, which is just that. It always takes a user back to this home screen, as we call it. We have an About page that provides information about CEMC, our energy initiative, our energy efficiency initiative work, as well as provides a convenient contact link for us. We have the products database drop-down menu, and for those users that come into the database, this is really the primary location that you're going to be interfacing with. So we're going to talk about this more in depth here in just a second. And then we've got a shortcut to the harmful chemical section, a shortcut to the supply chain map, and then we've got something here on the right-hand side. This is called My Account. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit deeper in just a bit. But again, one of the key aspects of the My Account section is that we offer users the ability to sign up and create an account within this database at no charge. And in doing so, they are then able to save the criteria associated with complex supply chain searches that they perform once they're in that company search function. We have extensive, really unprecedented search capability from a manufacturing standpoint once we get deep into this, which we'll show you. And we offer people the ability to have this account in that they can then save their search results and obviously refer back to them at some point in the future. So as we come over here, we select a drop-down. We'll walk through exactly what we've got in the options. Again, you've got an About and a Using, which provide historical data as well as user information. again, as I made the statement here just a second ago, a key feature being the ability to save searches with a free account. We have the company search option, which provides the ability to perform in-depth searches, filtering criteria such as sector, CSI code, or the Construction Specifications Institute master format number, supply chain tier, state, company ownership, and health certification data. We have sector shortcuts leading directly to the specific market sectors sections within the database, as do the large home screen radio buttons. Note the additional information afforded when selecting a specific company entry. So at this point, I want to go through, and I just selected the company search option. So it's going to open up here. We're going to walk through these details so this is just a little bit clearer. We understand it can be a little bit complex when we start talking about sector and tier, but this is what we've got. So when we go into the company search page, you'll see you can obviously search by sector, and for right now we're going to leave this just selected as all. You can search by specific CSI code, and again for right now we're going to leave that selected as all. You have tier, obviously a top tier being OEM, but then we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Specific state, and you can select more than one. You can select all that apply. And then a really unique piece of this database and an aspect that has been the result of a pretty significant amount of background research has been the company ownership and the USA manufacturing presence. So you can select through any one of these variables. So for the sake of this example, you know, I'm going to go ahead and select USA-owned company headquarters with on-site manufacturing. Noting again, all of these different variables are things that could be selected. And then finally, in the filtering criteria, you can select by certifications or standards, building green approved, cradle to cradle, declare, green guard, health product declaration or HPDs, Pharos, and SCS Global Services. And then finally, when you're down there at the bottom then, and you've selected your criteria, then you'll just hit submit. And then you'll have returns that come back. So you'll notice, based upon the criteria that I just input, I've got 259 hits based upon all of the companies within our database. And so we'll look at this now, see exactly what's here. And then, as an example, we'll just go to one of these. So if you scroll down and then you select a company you want to learn more about, it then takes us to a page with specific information associated with that company. We see obviously their name, product information, product descriptions, the market sectors they're involved in. We include here the relative tier that they are operating within this market sector at. Generic contact information, a hot link to a website, a phone number. And one of the most exciting things, again, that's provided on this page as well, that we've gotten quite a bit of positive feedback on, is we also have researched and include the product brand names that commonly are associated with this OEM level. So when we say that, Boyertown Furnace Company, in the case of this example, they are also selling products to end users under the brand names of Regal, Hallmark, etc. This is really, really a neat feature for a whole bunch of different reasons. And again, it's included on all of these different companies. So the neat thing then is, in doing this, as we go back, again, with that free account, as we spoke about earlier, this specific result then, as an example, based upon all of this initial criteria that's put in, can be retained, and it can be saved, and then you can return back to it at a later date. Finally, at the bottom of the companies, or at the bottom of the Housing Products Database drop-down tab, we also have a generic listing of index by state and an index by company name. These are just simply aggregated total listings of companies within this database. As Dana mentioned, 1,300 or so companies listed by geographically by state, and then also listed by company name alphabetically. So that's just a simple way to pull a big, huge aggregated list of all of the information that is, in fact, in the database. The shortcut tabs that we see take us back to the exact same locations that the drop-downs here take you to. So when we see building shell here, that takes us to the exact same location as do the large radio buttons that are right across the database company search page, as well as the pages that the large radio buttons on the home page takes you. At that point, Dana, that is really walking through a very quick, brief overview of how the database actually works live. At that point, I think we want to go back to Dana and move on to the next database point.
Actually, Dale, we're going to be moving on to Lauren first.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But you were advancing.
Absolutely. Brett, could you give me control again? Thank you. Now I want to switch this over to Lauren Asplin. Lauren is going to specifically talk more about the harmful chemicals piece. Lauren, I will be advancing the slides for you. Take it away.
Hey, Lauren, are you there with us now? And how about now, Lauren? Are you here with us now?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
We're good.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I was supposed to use my cell phone, but of course I'm not getting any signal in the building that I'm in, so I had to borrow a speakerphone. Well, thank you, everybody. What I'm going to do is to go over the content in the harmful chemicals section of the website. BlueGreen Alliance was tasked with looking at the energy efficient products that we were gathering the information for the companies and seeing which of them could endanger tenants' health. The consensus that we found was that insulation was the primary product that was hazardous, and that's because of the chemicals that are used to bind, formulate, and even make insulation safer through fire resistance. But considering that insulation is a key compound in affordable housing retrofits because of its excellent ability to reduce energy usage and thus save money and carbon dioxide emissions, the question arises, how should we view insulation? Is it an energy-saving miracle or a chemical minefield? Taking a closer look, as you can see listed on the slide, insulation can have many good outcomes. In fact, all types of insulation are almost universally marketed as a green product. But when any product is called green, the consumer automatically views it as a badge of approval. I mean, who doesn't want to improve the environment and save the planet? But in the case of insulation, green simply refers to energy efficiency and not any possible ill effects. So while a lot of high-level building professionals such as architects are becoming more familiar with these issues of health, many other interested parties are not. Information can be difficult to find and confusing once in hand. Our goal is to educate all parties, owners, contractors, and tenants to be proactive and to add chemical concerns to the cost and comfort when choosing insulation. Within this harmful chemical section of the website, what we're trying to do is get the best knowledge currently available and make it accessible and easy to understand. One of the ways we're doing that is with this matrix of insulation and chemicals. You can see the link between the different types of insulation and toxic chemicals. On the far left, you see the materials such as fiberglass, mineral wool, etc., and the chemicals of concern in the center column. Just because the two are listed in the chart together does not definitively mean the chemicals are in each product, just that they may be. To find out more information about the dangers of the chemicals, you would click on that chemical name. That would take you to a sheet with further information about the acute and chronic effects of the chemical. The colors of the icons show the level of danger according to authoritative research. So, for example, red would indicate the strongest impact and evidence. In addition, the chemical sheet provides suggestions for avoiding exposure to the chemical under the Safer Alternative section. This is set up in a good, better, and best scale. In many cases, the best alternative is simply to avoid certain types of insulation. Except for the newer non-formaldehyde bindings in the fiberglass insulation, there are no safer chemical versions of most insulation on the market. We provide you with some safer alternatives, but we don't rate the types of insulation or actual products on the website. There's a lot of complexity, in picking the best insulation for whatever the location is in the home or the geographical location. Also, please note that we're only looking at health impacts here and not broader environmental issues such as greenhouse gases, which can be found in the blowing agents of spray foam. This chart pretty much summarizes the potential health impacts without having to go through each of the chemical data sheets as I just showed you. As you can see under the top hazards column, some are linked to some pretty serious diseases. So you have cancer, you have asthma, you have developmental issues, bioaccumulative. So, I mean, we're talking pretty serious consequences here. So the question then is, if these chemicals are so bad, how come we don't just get rid of them? The website will discuss how difficult it is to eliminate or substitute a chemical. In fact, sometimes when there has been substitutions in the past, the chemical that's substituted can be worse than the chemical that was in use. This is a situation called regrettable substitution. There's also discussion about how you often don't even know what's in the insulation product, so it's difficult to know if there is hazardous components. Companies hide behind proprietary claims and they refuse to disclose ingredients. A transparency movement has been building for about a decade to get manufacturers and their suppliers to be upfront about what's in their products. There are some manufacturers who are in the forefront of responding to transparency and safety demands, however. So we wanted to acknowledge these good players, the ones who reveal the components, get them certified for low emissions, and or otherwise strive to make safer and healthier products. The icons that you see on the screen help to recognize products that are better for consumers' health or that provide transparency in chemical makeup. Going into a page from the database, you can see how we recognize companies who manufacture safer products. Down in the lower right, in the box that's surrounded with red, you see icons on the company page. If you click on one of those icons, it'll take you to a page that explains what the certification is, and because the database is organized around companies and not individual products, how to find the products with that certification. Finally, we want to engage people to learn more about safety issues and to become more active in demanding healthier products. So we provide a list of links to organizations that can be contacted for further information. I thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Now I'm going to move on to the final section and description of the supply chain map. There we go. Well, what we are looking at here, and basically if you look at the top section here that Dale was describing earlier, you have the icon you can click on here regarding the supply chain map. When you click on that, you basically bring up this screen right here. And just to describe what you're looking at here, over on the left-hand side, you have all of your states listed, similar to what you would have on the company search page. We have our 5 sectors listed, appliances, building shell, HVAC, lighting, and water, all coded by color. And you can also search this page by tier. And, you know, a lot of the reason we do that is because manufacturers who would use this as a search tool for supply chain opportunities, this allows them to sort of see a network of suppliers and what level they're operating on. And again, you know, most of the manufacturers we have listed within here are OEMs or original equipment manufacturers making specific brand names. We do have some folks who reside on the different tiers who are suppliers to that industry, and we are going to be building more of that information into this database in the coming days and months. And then basically what I want to do is show you over here how you can zoom to specific areas and get a better idea of what kind of activity is happening around in your region. And specifically just because, Brett, you're here in Grand Rapids, wanted to show you just sort of a makeup of what that region looked like. And again, you can see, looking at your sectors, the different colors here representing different sectors. And as you scroll over these, you can basically click on them and see the different companies that are operating there, and click onto the company name and bring up the same information that Dale was describing earlier. All of your product brand names, product description, you have your building green approved here in the corner, what Lauren was just describing, the icon there. And again, telling you that this is a U.S. manufacturing facility for cellulose material solutions. And, you know, what's really interesting about this map, I think, is that it really allows you in an easy way to see what products are being made in closest proximity to you and your project. And it's really a visual way to look at the manufacturing footprint these markets have in our country, and with a tool that allows you to find U.S.-made products. There's a lot more attention being paid to in these days about where products are coming from, how can we create additional economic activity from buying and using products made here in the U.S., and this is an easy way to be able to access those products. And, you know, again, for manufacturers, it's a way to look at supply chains on various levels to better understand these opportunities and potential partners in those markets. The tool can literally help people see how decisions we make on product purchases can impact our local, regional, and national economy. One thing I did want to note, additionally, if I can expand the map out, if you'll notice, we do include some Canadian OEMs, excuse me, some Canadian manufacturers. I'm sorry, the map is not helping me here. Anyway, Canadian manufacturers that sell their products into the U.S. and have manufacturing near the U.S. border. You can even see just along here how many companies are manufacturing right there on the north part of the USA, and there's a lot of trading going on, both with those companies sending their products into the U.S. and us, you know, being a part of those supply chains. It's sort of different from the Mexican border, where we didn't include manufacturing addresses because a lot of Canadian and U.S. Brand manufacturers are operating their facilities within Mexico rather than being owned there. So just wanted to make that distinction about that. I'm going to go back to the main page here. And basically, that is all we had here for our description of the database. I knew we wanted to see if folks had questions. I don't know, Brett, if people have been entering those, if we just wanted to start seeing if people had thoughts. But thank you, everyone, for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks again, Dana, and everybody, please feel free to start putting your questions in there. We've got quite a bit of time here for Q&A. The first one that we got is, could you re-explain to us a little bit more about the tier listings on the database?
Sure, Brett, I can go ahead and I can take that one. Again, this is Dale Reckman. So, you know, and I'm great. It's great that someone asked or inquired about this question, because quite frankly, as we talk about supply chain, whether it be in the energy efficiency world or we talk about supply chain in the renewable energy world, wherever it may be, it's typically one of the first questions that we get that sometimes can be a bit of a challenge to kind of get one's head wrapped around. So, when we talk about tiers, and we talk about OEMs, if we envision, and for the sake of this discussion, we'll use a refrigerator, a large, main appliance, a refrigerator, a typical residential refrigerator as an example. A typical refrigerator, as sold by any one of a number of OEMs, obviously examples being GE or Electrolux or Samsung or whomever it may be. That typical refrigerator is going to have upwards of 2,000 or so components that are made up within it, making that complete end-user product. In reality, though, the typical OEM, that original equipment manufacturer, again, that GE or Samsung or whatever the company may be, that manufacturer in reality is only going to be purchasing 100 or 200 parts to assemble and manufacture that refrigerator. All of those items are, in fact, coming to that OEM through a very mature, significant tier structure. And when we say tier structure, we will say if you literally start dropping down, the OEM purchases materials from a tier 1. Oftentimes in supply chain, that tier 1 will be called a significant tier 1 or even a tier 1 integrator. In the terminology there is used to explain a relationship where that tier 1 is purchasing materials from a tier 2. The tier 2s may be purchasing material from a tier 3, and so on down a given supply chain until we are at root materials, bare metals, bare adhesives and things like that. And so the higher you get in the tier structure, the more assembly and sub-assembly and sub-integrating are taking place for the purpose of ultimately, in the end, subcomponent assemblies are in fact actually being provided to the OEM. So the OEM is only writing purchase orders for so many hundreds of items, although there are thousands of items that are in reality going into that product. One of the things we look at as we look at domestic content, we look at manufacturing opportunities, we look at reasons why energy efficient products aren't being utilized. A lot of times it's as a result of having to look very deep within the supply chain and the sub-tiers, recognizing that shortages may occur in more hidden areas that aren't immediately quickly visible. So we have to look a little bit deeper in that there may be some tier 2 or tier 3 subcomponent item that's being supplied to some other tier that is in shortage. And that ultimately is having the effect of making the end product a challenge in terms of availability. So that's kind of the tier arrangement. Hopefully that was a clear understanding for everybody, and you kind of have a little bit better grasp on how that relationship actually works.
And yeah, so if there's any other questions on that, but maybe to highlight what it is not, is it's not the Energy Star tiers, correct? Because there's Energy Star 1, 2, 3. I think that's the first thing I thought when I saw it. So I realize that. I'm just making that apparent. So
yeah, no, Brett, you are absolutely in fact correct. This is supply chain tiers.
All right, great. Still got more time for questions as you guys are putting those in the box there. I've got a few that I have assembled myself as we went through here. So, I think one of the ways I came across this, and one of the ways we've been talking about it, are these materials for multifamily housing, and I believe there's a discussion of affordable housing. But can this be beneficial to those in the single family and or commercial industry?
Dale, I can take that one. You know, this is something that I actually talk about a lot. I mean, there's a big focus of the people that we're working with on low-income residential and multifamily, but really the products that are within the database can be used within any, you know, residential or multifamily project, I mean, of any scale, I think. You know, we didn't, I think, include as much high-end stuff, and we did not include commercial industrial stuff. So although where there, you know, in some cases you do have some commercial stuff that will fall within multifamily or people who make similar products for both uses, so obviously we included those companies, but like high-end commercial products are not included within this. I mean, does that sound correct, Dale?
Yeah, Dana, that would be correct. You know, and there are some other items that aren't included in here as well, and it's probably worthwhile to note, you know, there are some products, and this is actually an impromptu discussion in that we were just talking about this discussion actually just the other day as well. You know, there are some Energy Star products that are shown within, for example, the Energy Star database set that are not included within our data set. So it's not as though it is genuinely a one-to-one.
No, and some of those products, you know, on the Energy Star site don't necessarily fall into, you know, a housing product category. There's like computers and other types of things that aren't, you know,
exactly.
for building purposes. So those did not get included. The other categories that we're going to be working on include roofing and windows and some of the sealants. We really sort of exhausted the insulation portion in terms of building shell on this first half, and we'll be digging deeper to those, as well as the additional supply chain tiers. You know, Dale's talking about 2 and 3 tiers, you know, looking at sort of the products that are within those sectors, and, you know, are there other opportunities for manufacturers there as well?
Yep, agreed.
So, and just help me, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about you're just bringing into the updating and next steps and sort of upkeep. So when on the affordable housing side, I'm assuming you were, for some of your criteria, had some price per square footage as you were doing your research of your products?
No, I mean, the way we really built out this list was that, you know, we looked to Energy Star and the Watersense programs, and, you know, looking at their list of products that they record on their website, and then doing the back research to understand what the manufacturing picture looked like. And then through that research on the manufacturers, coming to understand what sectors they're sort of working in. Are they working in, you know, industrial, commercial, or are they working in multifamily and residential and things like that? And that's how sort of we built, you know, the company list that we wanted to focus on.
Great. So how does this stay up to date? A company changes name, goes out of business, they lose a certification. How often does this get updated?
Well, that's another great question. You know, we're actually having conversations trying to even work with Energy Star to understand how they're doing their updates and how we might capture companies whose products are coming on and off that list, along with, you know, just general updating as we go through and add additional, you know, product categories, whether it's sealants, windows, and other things. We'll be continually doing the updates and trying to find ways. Obviously, it's an interesting and difficult task at times, but to keep this relevant and to keep it, you know, up to date for folks who want to research these products.
You know, Brett, it's an interesting question you just posed, and again, this is Dale just jumping in there again, but it's an interesting question you posed, and it's one that we talk about internally quite a bit as well, and we just actually, Dana and I just most recently had a pretty lengthy meeting actually with Energy Star staff about this very topic as well. And, you know, one of the challenges that we're faced with that we're continually having to manage and mitigate is, you know, the total mix of companies that are not necessarily manufacturers, but they're, you know, they may be, for example, distributors, and they may be carrying, you know, a whole host of different products. They may be Asian in origin, and it has proved thus far a pretty significant challenge, significantly, you know, sorting through keeping the generic distributors off of this database and keeping this database focused on actual manufacturers that are actually providing product, not only in North America, but abroad. So it is largely, as we stand here today, it's a manual vetting, manual research process that we're continuing to go through.
Yeah, great, thanks. Still got some time here for other questions. I've got a few more as we're going through this, and I'm just kind of referring back to that map, and maybe I missed it, but I was thinking just to confirm the areas on that map are actually where the product is manufactured at. It's not necessarily the headquarters or where the business ownership is at. Is that correct, or is there both?
It's actually both. So what you'll want to do then is, as you see those little colored buttons, you'd click on them, click on the company name, and then what you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of that product or that company information profile is what is the specific. Is it a U.S. manufacturing facility? Is it foreign-owned with U.S. manufacturing? It'll tell you right there. So depending on what company you click on, and I don't know if Dale, you mentioned that in your original description, but yeah, that's sort of how you differentiate, you know, ownership versus manufacturing presence versus is this just a sales and distribution facility for a U.S. owned company that is only importing product to the United States. You know, we felt that, you know, to really understand everything, it was important to sort of get to that level of detail, not just see, you know, we wanted to look at the whole universe. So looking at all these different Energy Star products and saying, okay, well, what does the manufacturing picture look like for each one of these categories? And so, you know, it was so interesting coming up with, you know, how we found out, you know, so many appliances were actually being manufactured here, and then what portions of those appliances are, you know, in that supply chain coming from overseas or coming from the U.S. And that's how, you know, we're really trying to get that level of detail within the database itself.
Mm-hmm. And Dana, that's exactly right. And, you know, for those users of the database, you know, if they just remember and they make a note, they can see again, you know, that breakdown of those different options by being on that database main homepage and then just scrolling back to the housing products database drop-down menu option and then selecting the company search page. When they go to the company search page, they just scroll down the page just a little bit, and there will be a large dialog box on the left-hand side that's called Company Ownership and USA Manufacturing Presence. And there is, I'm not counting here, but there's, I don't know, almost a dozen different options that someone can choose within. And I can just tell you, as we're talking here, for those not looking at it, you've got all, you've got USA owned, you've got USA owned company headquarters only, you have USA owned company headquarters with on-site manufacturing, you've got USA owned manufacturing assembly facility, you have USA owned non-manufacturing, in parentheses, sales and distribution facility / importer, and then you've got foreign-owned manufacturing assembly facility, foreign-owned non-manufacturing sales distribution facility, and finally, foreign-owned and operated company only an exporter.
Yep.
So, and I'm wondering if maybe this is in there or maybe it's on the docket, but the idea of the local first movement, right? So American made, great, but now drilling down even further to, is it not just made but owned, right? So is there regional ownership? Is there ownership all within the state, or is there ownership within a particular county or even city? You know, we know that you know, purchasing materials from those types of businesses help keep money in the local economy. Organizations are starting to look at that. Is there going to be any effort to build anything like that out?
Well, I mean, I think that's where the supply chain map really comes in handy, because you can just sort of click on your region and get an idea of where those companies are. So if you go back you know, Brett, looking at the supply chain map for
And
the
feel
Grand
free
Rapids
to
area.
open that up if you want to open it up again.
Oh, sure. Let me do that. Okay, that could help. Hang on.
Yeah. We'll all get some visuals here. It's a webinar.
Yeah, sorry about it. I start talking. Okay, here we go. So again, we have this regional area, and we'll click down into Michigan and into the Grand Rapids area. And so, you know, looking at this, what I noticed around you is, you know, there's 4 building shell companies located, you know, between Holland and north of Grand Rapids. So, you know, this is Atlas EPS. You know, they do the roof insulation. You know, it sort of tells you, again, you know, going back to the example I showed earlier, the cellulose materials, you click this open, and again, up here, just to show you, Brett, up in the right-hand corner, so this is just a U.S. manufacturing facility. They're an affiliate of New Wool, but they're not. The company is not headquartered here. They're just manufacturing in this region. So this sort of tries to tell you the difference between these locations here. So yeah, so if you're looking for things, you know, this sort of just visually shows you, you know, where companies you might want to go to are. Up here in Greenville area, you know, they're manufacturing appliances. You know, over here in the Grand Haven area, you know, there's the Light Corporation. You know, there's just, I think, a multitude of ways to just sort of peek in and get an idea of what's being made around in your region. I mean, does that make sense, Brett, or is there something, I guess, else that you were looking for in that?
It definitely helps. Again, it's just, yeah, trying to drill down really if somebody's starting to look at actual ownership and whether that ownership is regionally or locally concentrated or, you know, could be anywhere. I think it's not necessarily what everyone's doing now, but I feel like it's sort of the evolving phase of how we look at where we get our materials from.
Yep, and I think, you know, and maybe it's even better searchable through the company search page, I was thinking. Because you can sort of come here and just see the U.S. owned stuff. So once you see U.S. owned with manufacturing, you know, on-site or U.S. owned, you know, you could click these 2 things and come up with a list of those that are U.S. owned and manufacturing in the here.
And drill it down and then look at the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. With the map, you know, are you able to put in the address of your project and then generate concentric circles as far as, you know, some green building programs say within 100 miles, within 500 miles, within 35% of it needs to come from this much. And then on top of that, you know, some say just they have to come from the manufacturer. Other green building programs have to, they say, mined, processed, extracted, and manufactured within 500 miles. So is there a way to create those concentric circles where someone could say, yep, I'm within it or I'm not?
We don't have that capacity currently, but I think that's a very interesting idea. Dale, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. You know, and that's, again, one of the benefits for us in doing these types of events. You know, we have the opportunity to collect feedback from everyone as far as, you know, future aspects of usability that they would like. And, you know, I think that's something, Dana, I know that I had thought about in the very beginning, having radius search capabilities, for example. But, you know, we started off with a certain load of criteria and knowing that there would be future iterations of this as we move forward. So, no, we don't have that capability in here today, but again, I think it's a great idea, and it would absolutely be something that we would look at incorporating in a next iteration.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, and I mean, what you have here is a huge step. I mean, it helps eliminate a lot of research and issues that I think people are going to have to take on to figure this stuff out. So,
sure.
I was looking at your list of third-party certified products that you guys have. Do you have LEED certified products as well that you list?
No, the certifications are just for the insulation as far as health or low emissions, or that they have content transparency. So we're not looking at LEED or in the sense of like certifications for energy efficiency. It's more on the health side.
And I say that somewhat jokingly because we still get a lot of people who think there are LEED certified products, and I wanted to make sure that make that apparent that there isn't, and so they won't find that here. So.
That was a trick question.
It was a trick question. I got you. Well, let's see here. I don't see any other questions from the audience. I think it was pretty straightforward. Maybe if you guys can just real quick, any final thoughts? Well, just reiterate your contact information, where people can find the database, and if anyone has any questions, where they can reach out.
Absolutely. Well, I have it back on this last slide here, which has all of our email contact information. So please feel free to reach out to any of us about, any questions, any other ideas regarding, just like Brett brought up around the sort of circles, concentric circles on the supply chain map. I think that's great. We'd love to get feedback because we are continuing to develop this database and try to make it better and more usable for folks. And people can find the database at www.bgadata.org. So please go visit it, take a look, and let us know what you think. Dale, anything on your end, or Lauren?
No, I don't think so. Again, just, thank you everybody for taking the time to kind of hang in there with us and listen through the information. There's quite a bit of information here on this database. It doesn't cost you anything. Go on to it. Just start kind of working around within it, and there's a bunch of pretty informative, unique information that can be found.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dana.
Oh, hearing nothing. Sorry about that.
All right, yeah, that doesn't look like anything from Laura. So Dana, Dale, Lauren, I really thank you all for your time. Thanks to the Clean Economy Manufacturing Center for your time. For those of you listening online, your surveys will be sent to you here by 1 o'clock, so please take those if you can. That's how you'll pick up your continuing education. Thanks for sticking around through this. For those of you listening on demand, make sure to take your CEU quiz right at the end of this, and you'll get your certificate from there. My name is Brett Little. This is the Green Home Institute webinar series. Thanks for participating. Everybody have a wonderful holiday. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.